Turkey's economy continues to fire on all cylinders. Its GDP grew 7.4% in the third quarter compared to the same period last year, as demand for Turkish goods and services boomed at home and abroad. Economists expect this momentum to carry through to the end of the year, which would make Turkey the fastest growing major economy in the world. Mobin Nasser reports.
A quick huddle to discuss the design, and Ahmet Kaya's team of carpenters begin working on a new set of couches. Their company, Kriya Contract, supplies furniture to hotels, and Kaya says they can barely keep up with demand.
We haven't stopped working during the pandemic because we already had orders. But since the lifting of social distancing restrictions, demand has jumped even higher and we're very busy.
The company's owner says many of its clients used the tourism lull during the height of the pandemic to remodel their hotels, boosting sales for her business.
Post-pandemic, there are new hotels that need furniture. We're seeing a 20 to 25% increase in demand.
In just a few days, these chairs and couches will be shipped off to different destinations, not just within Turkey, but also Dubai, Amsterdam, and other major hubs around the world. The company's been selling to the Middle East and Europe for years, but it's seeing increasing demand from African countries as well. And it's not the only Turkish company seeing strong demand locally and abroad. Turkish exports jumped almost 26% in the third quarter, while domestic private consumption increased by more than 9%. That propelled the country's GDP growth to 7.4% compared to the same period last year. Analysts say a fall in the value of the Turkish lira and a drawdown in the inventories of raw materials have pushed down net investments in the economy. But the boom in other sectors is expected to make up for these reductions.
Capital goods imports are declining lately, so that's a bit worrying. But otherwise, consumption and exports are very healthy. So we expect this trend to continue in the fourth quarter. And we expect to complete the year 2021 with a 10.9% growth.
If these predictions come true, the country will end the year with the highest pace of economic growth among G20 countries. Mubin Nasir, TRT World, Istanbul.
For more on this, Erhan Aslanoglu joins me from Istanbul. He's an economics professor at Piri Reis University. Erhan, thank you for being with us. How much of this is actually a rebound after a contraction last year and also driven by pent-up demand?
Thank you very much again. And well, Turkish economy has been growing basically by export-led growth. There is also pent-up demand in these growth figures, but basically the manufacturing industry, demand for manufacturing industry output goods in the world and in Europe, in Turkey, has substantially increased during the pandemic because our homes turned to be as if offices and schools, so we need lots of technological products, furniture, etc. So this demand, also pent-up demand, come up with high demand for Turkish manufacturing goods, and also this demand not only in domestic market in all over the world, but basically in Europe, has increased our exports, Turkish exports, and this is the main reason for high growth figures in Turkey in the past 4 quarters and in the third quarter of this year as well.
Right, and as you said, the consumption component and also the net exports component added strongly to GDP. But there's a new emerging COVID variant actually emerging in Europe. And does that worry you? What's the potential impact on the Turkish economy?
Well, of course, it's worrying that, but the world started to cope with the pandemic and these variants. I don't think that the lockdowns will come up with this variant, but what we see is that supply chain problems will persist probably, and this will be more inflationary in the near term. But what changed with the pandemic in the world of production is that from just-in-time production to just-in-case production. That means that firms are trying to work with more stocks or ask more goods and raw materials to stock their goods in order to meet the demand. So I think the demand for Turkish goods, manufacturing goods, will continue in the near future. But probably supply chain problems or will cause somehow the slowdown in the export growth in this quarter and maybe in the first and second quarter of the next year. We see that some early indicators of Europe and in the world economy, there is a deceleration in the growth rate. So we can expect somehow a reflection on Turkish growth rate and also on Turkish exports. But I think even if it's not going to be so strong, the export-led growth will be the main picture in the next year, in this quarter and in the next coming quarters for Turkish economy.
At the same time, though, we've seen capital goods exports and also investments actually slightly contracting. Why is this temporary, and is this worrying you?
Well, that's important, but we need to observe whether it will persist or continue in this quarter or in the next coming quarters. One reason why it's contracting is that last year in the third quarter, the expenditures on investment goods were very high, almost, as far as I remember, 22%. So the base effect worked this in this third quarter. And when we look at the composition of this investment expenditures, we see the contraction more in construction type of investment expenditures rather than the demand for machinery and equipment, or the investment on new machinery and equipment still continues, and that's important. But well, that's true, and the demand for Turkish exported goods needs more investment to increase the capacity of Turkish exports. If it persists this term and in the coming quarters, the deceleration in investment expenditures, that might be more worrying.
Erhan Aslanoglu, thank you very much for this analysis.